Excellent. Good morning, folks. Thank you for joining us today for the 2025 Research and Design RAD Fellowship Symposium. Today, we are talking about community mapping, assets, capacity building, and behavioral health spectrum partnerships in rural and urban New England. I am Sarah Harlow. I am the co-director of the New England PTTC, and you see all the folks who were hard at work on the fellowship this year listed before you. So excited to hear from them today about the resources that they have been creating over the course of the last 7 months. If you were not here to see the symposium, you may be in the wrong Zoom link, but we're happy to have you here, however you found yourself here today. I have a couple of housekeeping things before we dive in, and I will be swift about those so we can get to the main portion of today's events. We like to give a land acknowledgement that acknowledges the New England PTTC operates on the lands of Native people. We operate out of Augusta, Maine, which is the ancestral lands of the Abenaki people who are part of the Wabanaki Confederacy. We believe we have a responsibility to acknowledge that Indigenous land connection. If you're interested in learning more about the land that you live, work, and play on, you can go to native-land.ca. There are other websites that work well to do that. We just like this website. So please feel free to go there and check out the native land that you live on. A little bit of funding information. This event is through the New England Prevention Technology Transfer Center, and we have a cooperative agreement with DHHS and SAMHSA. The views that are expressed today, the things that you're going to hear, are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of the federal government. And you can see our cooperative agreement number here. If you don't know the New England PTTC, which I think many of you, if not all of you, do know if you're on this call, we do customize hands-on technical assistance, which includes things like our RAD program, and we create cutting-edge tools and resources like the 5 that you are about to see in the course of the next hour and a half. And we have high-impact training offerings. So those include things like our ethics and SAPS TOTs that we're hosting this month, which is a shameless plug for those. If you're interested in a SAPS or ethics TOT, we do still have a couple of spaces, so please feel free to reach out, as well as our School of Best Practices, which is coming up in just a couple of weeks as well, which offers training for folks in recovery, treatment, and prevention that are a little bit more advanced than what you might get in a typical training. So if you're an advanced level professional and you're looking for a week of great information and trainings, especially if you're going for your certification, please join us for that. We serve Region 1, which is the 6 New England states. You can see us over there on the right side of your screen. There are PTTCs across the country, so we're part of a national network. If you're not familiar, if you're not from New England and you're not familiar with your PTTC, please let us know. We'd be happy to connect you. We work really well as a network, so we would love to introduce you to folks in your region. We believe that language matters through the PTTC network, and that the use of affirming language inspires hope. So we try to use person-first language whenever possible, and we would ask that in the course of today's meeting that you would try to do the same. We do that to the best of our ability, so there is no shame if we slip up, but we try. Who we are, the New England PTTC. You're hearing from me now, Sarah Harlow, and Aaron Burnett, our director, is also on the call and will give us some welcoming remarks in just a moment. We also have Susan Pomerlow and Zamzam Abdurrahman, who are a part of the ADEPT team. You may know us as AdCare Educational Institute of Maine. We did just have a name change at the 1st of July, so you'll now be seeing emails and notifications from ADEPT Educational Institute of Maine. We also have Kristen Erickson and Kate Chichester, who are part of the CCSME team, and Megan Hawks and Kim Magoon, who are on our public consulting group team. We're also really happy to say that we now have Ray Sanchez, who's a part of our ADEPT team, as our marketing coordinator, and really lucky to have him on board. So with that, I'm going to turn it to Erin, the New England PTTC Director and the Adept Educational Institute of Maine Director of Operations, to offer a few welcoming remarks. Erin?
Thank you, Sarah, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2025 RAD Fellowship Symposium hosted by the New England PTTC. We're excited to have you here today as we showcase the work of this year's RAD Fellows, which I can't believe we're already at the end of the program. Our RAD Fellows have spent the last several months diving into our 2025 focus area, which is community mapping, assets, capacity building, and behavioral health spectrum partnerships in rural and urban New England. This theme has really invited our fellows to take a fresh look at our communities, not just the challenges that we face as prevention specialists, but also the strengths, the relationships, and the local wisdom that can power real change. The 2025 RAD Fellows have brought forward innovative ideas and created new tools for the prevention workforce that are rooted in the places they live and work and build healthy communities. The RAD Fellowship is about growing leaders in the prevention field and growing knowledge and practice of the workforce. And it's about connecting the dots between research, practice, and the people we serve. And today we get to learn from fellows who are doing just that. So thank you everyone for being here, and let's get started. Thank you.
Thanks, Erin. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what the RAD program is for those who do not know, and then I'll turn it to Dan, our fellowship mentor, to offer a few words before we kick it over to the fellows. So the RAD program has two goals. The first one is the professional development for experienced prevention professionals. We find in our data around the workforce about for preventionists that we have folks who are brand new to the field, and then once folks have been in the field for 5 to 7 years, they tend to stay. But there are fewer and fewer professional development opportunities for those folks, as they have had a lot of experience and a lot of time to take the 101 type of trainings that we offer for folks who are brand new. So this program came from the need to offer new professional development experiences for those folks. The second goal is to create new resources for the prevention field at large. So these are resources that are around kind of hot topics that people are really interested in right now. We find those topics based on our needs assessments and conversations we have with folks in the field. And so this piece around mapping communities came directly from you all and your colleagues. This is a paid opportunity for fellows to dive deeply into a subject that is both important to them, but also a gap that they're seeing in the resources that are out there. It's also useful because it connects the fellows from different states. Although I will say this year, Vermont showed up and showed out. We have 3 fellows from Vermont this year. So a big shout out to Vermont, because you are you're creating some really good preventionists over there. Whatever is in the water, we want to know what it is. There's also an opportunity to continue to market and promote your specific skills in the field. So after this program ends, we continue to work with the fellows in a lot of different capacities, whether that's bringing their resources to different tabling events and conferences that we have, or whether it's recommending the fellows when we get TA requests around a topic we know that they're an expert in, we may recommend them for future work in the field. So it's useful for folks who are doing consulting work or are interested in doing consulting work to be a part of this, because then we know we can recommend both your product and you as a consultant. So this year we had 5 fellows. In past years, we have had 6. So happy to bring on the 5 folks this year. We have 4 previous terms. We started this program in 2021, and our previous subject areas include, but are not limited to, the changing landscape of cannabis, with a focus on the IC and RC prevention domains. 2023, we did root causes of substance misuse in New England, and 2024, we had a focus on workforce development, recruiting, training, and retaining diverse professionals across the career lattice. So this year, you're going to hear about community mapping, and that will be an addition to this wonderful list of resources created over the years. This program is really self-directed. The fellows do 90% of the work on their own, and then we come together once every couple of months to touch base and connect and make sure everybody is feeling on track. And there is a $10,000 fellowship award that comes with being a part of the program. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan Fitzgerald. Dan, I'm sure will tell you this, but he was a part of this program twice before joining us as the mentor. And we work with Dan in a lot of different capacities and feel very fortunate to have him as a member of the team at large. So I'll turn it to you, Dan.
Thank you, Sarah, and a huge thanks to the entire PTTC New England team. Really excited to see so many folks on here. I'll keep this quick because I know the real reason you're here is to hear about these 5 amazing products created by our 2025 cohort of RAD Fellows. But for anybody I haven't had a chance to meet, my name's Dan Fitzgerald. I use he, him pronouns, and I serve as executive director of a local nonprofit in Rhode Island who leads prevention work down in Charlestown, Richmond, Hopkinton, and Westerly, Rhode Island. As Sarah mentioned, I was able to be a part of the first 2 cohorts of the RAD Fellowship in New England. My first year creating an Allies Guide to Primary Prevention and looking at inclusive programming within the LGBTQ plus community, a guidebook, and kind of a data look into our 6 New England states. And then the year after, I was able to create an alternative to suspension program around cannabis, modeled after a program we'd created and implemented for several years in the Chariho Regional School District down here in southern Rhode Island. So these are just examples of some of the types of products that hopefully folks have looked at all of our prior years, cohorts of really some amazing topical resources, many of which continue to live on and be utilized long into the future. The last few years, I've had the privilege of joining on as a mentor, as somebody who's gone through the program, and able to really work alongside our fellows in a variety of capacities. Sometimes that is just the helping it make it look a little pretty, or helping gather some resources or research, but really a sounding board and hopefully a resource to our amazing group here. So without further ado, I will have us move forward. If anybody wants to ever reach out, this is my email, dan@wellbeingcollab.org. Would love to chat about some of my prior products, or if you have any questions about the general work of the RAD program, or how great it is to work with the PTTC team. Always happy to chat. With that said, we will get things kicked off, and I will turn it on over to our first RAD fellow, Heather. Over to you, Heather.
Thank you. So my name is Heather Brouillard. I have created a tool called Beyond Home and School, which is a study of third spaces for teens in New England's rural counties. So this tool came out of the work I've done with teen interns over the course of the last 3 years. I've challenged these interns to go out into their community and to explore the opportunities they do have and the opportunities they really want to see in their communities. They've talked to their peers, and they've taken a lot of different information from different sources. And a couple of things that they found in Rutland County was that there was a general lack of awareness among their peers about the existing third spaces. There were a lot of gaps, both geographically and in the type of third space availability. And then they found a really big challenge on how do they take the information that they're finding and how do they illustrate this and bring it both to local leaders and local organizations that can foster the change that's needed. So out of that work with these great young people came this tool. So a little bit about me. So I am from Rutland, Vermont, born and raised. My education is in the legal fields, and I began my career in public defense in an urban setting. And this is where I really became invested in the impact of substance use and addiction as it relates to the barriers that young people face in building stable and thriving lives. So when I moved back to Vermont, I shifted my work directly into working with youth in both education and third space environments. And this experience really underscored the importance of these stable and supportive environments in youth making these healthy choices and being able to avoid risk factors like substance use. For the past 5 years, I worked directly in prevention. And my prevention work is really focused on supporting teens through community-based prevention strategies and focusing on uplifting teen voices and fostering proactive and people-centered prevention work. So third spaces. In prevention, we take that term and we throw it around a lot. For the purposes of this product, third spaces are community-based places where teens can grow, gather, and belong. So it's places where they can build social engagement, they meet other teens, they build their social environment. It's places where they can expand their learning, their creativity. They can foster wellness, and it offers different opportunities for recreation. So the bottom line really is that third spaces are protective factors reducing risk and increasing resilience. So why do they matter? So teens in rural areas face really unique challenges: social isolation, binge drinking, early cannabis use, and not having these third space opportunities can just exacerbate and worsen the trends. So the key message to really take away is investing in third spaces is investing in youth well-being, resilience, and long-term health, especially in New England rural counties where resources are often limited. So in the tool that I've created, I have taken a lot of research about the existing third spaces in New England rural counties. I have separated them out by state and by county. And then I've categorized the third space opportunities into 8 different categories. So third space opportunities include, definitely not limited to, but include community and cultural spaces. So these would be like your teen centers, your recreation centers, anywhere that teens can go and just exist and be together. Creative and performing art spaces, so fine arts, music lessons, dance lessons, drama clubs. Outdoor and nature-based spaces, which New England, especially New England rural areas, do not have any shortage of. Public parks, skate parks, hiking trails, biking paths. Athletic and wellness-oriented spaces include like sports fields and courts, aquatic centers, ice rinks, ski areas. Casual and hangout spaces like bowling alleys, arcades, gaming lounges. Technology and learning hubs include tech centers, robotics programs. Civic and faith-based programs include YMCAs, church youth groups, and 4-H. And then finally, support and wellness-oriented spaces such as Pride centers, peer support groups, and substance use prevention centers. So beyond categorizing by the type of third space, I also highlighted the organizational type. So whether it was public, nonprofit, or private. So why this matters. So public and nonprofit spaces rely on grant municipal budgets, whereas private spaces face the same economical challenges as other local businesses. So just knowing the background and how these opportunities are supported can really dictate longevity. And then I also categorized it by the cost of experience. So this really dictates the availability and equitable access for all youth in rural counties. So I indicated whether the opportunity was free and open to public, whether it was a paid opportunity and did cost money, or whether it was a combination of both. So for instance, like a library where you can go in and you can use the library space, but to be able to actually take out a book might cost you money. So the complete tool that you can find on the website is separated out, like I said, by state, and then in each state separated out by rural county. So I've created a chart of all the third space opportunities found in each county. And they are separated out by category. So you have your 8 different categories. And then through that, I listed the name, whether it's the public, nonprofit, or private, the address and the website. So if you're interested in more information, I tried to be as comprehensive as I could about the programmings offered, and then whether it was a free or a paid opportunity. In addition to the charting, you'll also find population maps. So I created chloropleth maps of both at both the state level and the county level, so you can visualize where the concentration of population will be. And then on top of that, I took the third space mapping that I created and I overlaid it on top of the chloroplast map. So you can have that kind of visual of where the opportunities exist versus where the population is centered. There is also a link to all of the third space mapping. They are interactive maps, so you can go as broad as the state level, you can zoom right into the neighborhood level, and see exactly where these third space opportunities exist. So the purpose of this tool, this is not intended to be a comprehensive tool of every third space opportunity in New England, because that would probably be pretty impossible to pull together in 7 months. So my goal was really to create this tool for communities to be able to take this as their starting point and to take the tool into their communities and expand on the work. So the scope of my research was based on publicly available online data, which obviously has its limitations, especially when you're talking about third space opportunities that are ever changing. And it really just provides a broad overview. It's not a complete inventory of the opportunities available in each area. So the limitations of this research, I certainly may have missed some opportunities. And these opportunities are also evolving constantly. So third space opportunities that teens take advantage of. I mean, off the top of my head, my work that I did in my own county, in Rutland County, Vermont, I know there are probably already some changes that have happened in the listings that I have. So this type of a tool really is constantly changing and evolving. So, use it as a guide, but definitely do not take this as the complete research done, because it definitely has its limitations. But the next steps and what I'm hoping can come from it. So take this, bring it back to your communities, and involve your local stakeholders with the lived experience. So essentially, the most success that we've found in Rutland County is having the youth take ownership of this work. So having youth go out and interview their peers and find out, where the third space opportunities are, where they're hanging out. Do they feel like they have enough opportunities for recreation? Do they have enough opportunities for the arts? Do they have enough opportunities for wellness and support? And as much as us as adults can come in and interview them, we're not really going to get the most authentic information. So really empowering your youth to take ownership of this research and this work is the best way to get the most accurate mapping. Other expansions that I had thought of. So possibly comparing, the third space opportunities to economic factors really could dictate some really interesting data. And then also comparing the third space opportunities to substance use statistics, I think would be a very interesting expansion of this work. So with that being said, does anybody have any questions? Wonderful. Well, thank you so very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to present this work. I'm definitely very passionate about it, and I hope that this tool that I've created can be taken into other communities and become useful for everybody. So without further ado, I will introduce my colleague, M. Delaney.
Thank you, Heather. So welcome to my product, Visualizing Community, which is a graphic handbook for community asset mapping projects. And I'll start with a little about my background. I was also a fellow last year. I have over 7 years now of experience in substance misuse prevention somehow. I'm a Vermont certified prevention specialist, and I'm also a member of the Vermont CPS board. My background has been in information management and communications, and I also have a background in experiential education and studio art. So this product is about the activity of participatory community asset mapping that can be carried out with any group of community members, such as a mixed group of community members or students, really any group that you can get together. This handbook lays out the principles that you can use for this a participatory experience that is based on the visualization of assets, carrying through from visualization to choosing a web-based mapping program that you can then use to place your information in and then make it available to the community afterward. Next slide. I also wanted to take a bit of a different approach. Having written the text, I wanted to give it more of a graphic feel to make the text more accessible. So comics can be very useful for telling a story and telling the story behind technical information. So technical information can be quite dry, and comics can convey that feeling of purpose and story behind it. So I wanted to use comics to create a speaking voice for the text. So I'd have a narrator who can speak directly to the reader and help connect readers with the concepts in the text in almost a more emotional way, creating more of a relationship. Next slide. So I created a character called the Community Explorer. The Community Explorer is out and about in his community, exploring everything that it has to offer. But at the same time, he's also connecting with the reader, often looking at the reader, gesturing to text that is appearing on the page or objects in order to connect the reader more with those concepts. Next slide. So this is all to really try to focus the reader on the main concept of the product, which is information visualization. So this is what I wanted to do with this handbook, was to take this concept of community asset mapping beyond kind of a dry overview of it into what does it actually mean to be going out in the community and asking people to talk about their experiences, what they're seeing. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to pause just for 1 second and open up a window. I don't know about anybody else in New England, but we're actually experiencing a lot of trouble from wildfire smoke. So I'm actually running out of air in the room. Just one. Sorry about that. I've actually been watching the air quality air quality map and being, I think we're in the orange right now. Anyway, thanks for your understanding. So this, wanted to give this handbook a graphic format to communicate the concepts of information visualization. What is information visualization? It can take complex concepts and knowledge and break them down into simplified images that can convey really a complex range of knowledge, experience, things that we want to be able to communicate in like small bites. Go on to the next slide. So we use visualization a lot in daily life, and we can apply it to the community asset mapping process to increase community participation. Visualization is really a way of communicating experience and memory, and community asset mapping is a way in which community members can describe how they know about and interact with assets. During the process, community members can capture visually where assets are in their community and how they work, how to find them and interact with them. So really looking beyond just a listing of community assets and going into you know, what is the experience of actually, say, walking into a building and using it? So, for instance, a good example, as in Heather's presentation, is the use of libraries as third place assets in communities. So visualization can tell you, really give you a picture of what it means to have, say, a library in your community, as we have a lot of in Vermont, that are really serving multiple purposes within a community, and giving it those assets. So thirdly, information visualization is also how wayfinding works. Wayfinding is how we use landmarks or signage to navigate through a complex space. And in community asset mapping, we can take all of this information and we can use it to help us get around in an actual map of the community, which I'll show in the next slide an example of. So this example is from a food asset map that was created in Vancouver, Canada. The purpose of this map is to help community members find no-cost and low-cost quality food sources. In this case, a community garden. Different types of assets are indicated by different icon types on the map, and the map itself allows us to visualize these assets in relation to each other and their availability to the community. And also on the left, you can see that one of these assets has been selected, and information that the community has provided is being displayed there. Next slide. So the three main takeaways from this resource, and really how I want it to be used, is that visualization can be a powerful tool for community asset mapping. From the beginning of the process, where you can gather a group of community members together, ask them to visualize where the assets are in their community and how to use them. And then you can take those visualizations and you can place them inside of a web-based mapping program such as Google My Maps, and make that information available to the community. And then the community can be using it to understand where the assets are, to keep this updated, and also to find ways of collaborating and enhancing and increasing and using these assets and projects. A community asset map is most accurate when the community fully participates, feels a sense of ownership of their experience and knowledge. You know, they can say, be able to bring up experiences that they've had that they might otherwise not have been able to communicate, and be able to make that available to everyone. And this is really, it really is a literal mapping experience, because you're asking community members to think about their environment as a space that can be navigated, and then focusing on the positive, focusing on what is in their community that can really be used to strengthen it and help it, and by describing its known and experienced capabilities and strengths. And now I'm going to hand it back to Sarah for the next presentation, and thank you very much for your participation. My air quality has improved a lot in the last 5 minutes.
Excellent. Thank you, Em. Our next presentation is from Christina Mansabo-Torres, who's been a RAD fellow a couple of times. We were really happy to work with her again this time around. Due to unforeseen circumstances, Christina could not join us today, so she was able to record her presentation, and I'm going to play that now. So bear with me just one moment while I pull that up. Okay, and please let me know if the sound does not come through, but I think I've done all what I need to do.
Hello, my name's Christina Mansebo-Torres, and my product is called Looking Beyond Clinical Care in Hispanic and Latino Communities. This product is a guide for those individuals looking to increase the impact of their program programming at the community level. This is my third year as a Research and Design Fellow of the New England Prevention Technology Transfer Center. So a little bit about myself. Like I said, my name's Christina. Professionally, I've had a wide variety of experiences. I am currently the co-founder and assistant director of a community-based organization called Centro de Ayuda y Esperanza Latina. That organization is headquartered in Massachusetts, but we also have legal standing in Florida and Connecticut, and we have projects in the Dominican Republic as well. I am the president of our organization's board in the Dominican Republic as well. So I oversee some of those projects going on in the Caribbean. I am the co-founder and co-director of a consulting agency called Blooming Consulting Services. And we do linguistically and culturally appropriate technical assistance as well as program evaluation. Before that, I was the program specialist at the National Hispanic and Latino Prevention Technology Transfer Center. And that's when that TA center was under the National Latino Behavioral Health Association, which is located in New Mexico. I've been a fellow of the RAD program since 2023, and I've done a number of products all related to this type of work in Hispanic and Latino communities. So my first product was on ACEs prevention and intervention when working with Hispanic churches and the role that they play in trauma prevention. And then last year I did a product on increasing the workforce in Hispanic and Latino communities, specifically how to increase representation in behavioral health, especially in prevention. And then before all of that, I was a program director at the New Bedford Health Department located in Massachusetts. Educationally, I am a PhD candidate in health sciences with a focus on trauma-informed care. I am currently in the stage of my dissertation. I am just about to start my research. And so I'm doing a study on the role of religious coping in ACEs recovery in Hispanic adults. Prior to that, I did get my master's degree in public health with a specialization in health promotion, and I have graduate certificates in epidemiology and global health. Some of my professional achievements, I led my team at my agency to win the SAMHSA 2023 Behavioral Health Equity Challenge. And so that just recognizes us as being very innovative when it comes to behavioral health equity, specifically in prevention as it relates to Hispanic and Latino communities. I also created the first Spanish language behavioral health training and fellowship program in Massachusetts, as far as I'm aware. And that program provides free training and paid fellowships in mental health, trauma, and substance misuse prevention and/or recovery. And that program really helps to increase representation, but also it really introduces Hispanic and Latino community members to the field of behavioral health, which a lot of people don't realize is a career field. And then I led the first Spanish language family-based opioid prevention program in Massachusetts when I was at the New Bedford Health Department. So I'm going to just introduce some of the concepts of my product, and then I will give you a little bit more details before ending my presentation. So there are two models that really the guide that I created is really built off of. So the first is known as the social drivers of behavioral health. And so there are some other terms for this. Some people call it social determinants of mental health, very similar to the social determinants of health model. There's a move to call them social drivers rather than social determinants. Some people encompass all of behavioral health, whereas others focus more specifically on mental health. But this model identifies 9 factors that are considered really drivers of poor behavioral health outcomes and risk of behavioral health issues among communities in the United States. And so you can see on the screen, these factors are underemployment and unemployment, food insecurity, poor access to or poor quality of healthcare, low education or educational inequality, poverty, low income or income inequality, poor neighborhoods and built environments, social exclusion or social isolation, housing instability, and adverse early life experiences. So those are trauma, or what we call ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. So those are potentially traumatic events or experiences that happen within the first 18 years of life when brain development is really going on. If you've been in prevention for a while, none of this is likely that surprising to you. But the other framework that this guide is really built off of is the 8 dimensions of wellness. And that framework is sometimes ignored in behavioral health prevention work, or it's kind of been forgotten as new waves of the workforce kind of start at the entry level. It used to be talked about a lot more, and it seems to kind of fall into the wayside a little bit. But for health and wellness to truly be achieved, all 8 aspects of wellness need to be addressed. This is not possible if prevention practitioners continue to do their work in silos. And so the idea behind this guide is that there are behavioral health adjacent collaborations that are really necessary for people to reach optimal behavioral health in our communities. And these collaborations may include agencies addressing employment, food insecurity, access to healthcare, economic development, education, housing and homelessness prevention, social services, and child and family supports. And that includes like Department of Children and Families, child welfare agencies, whatever it's called in your state, that would include those agencies as well. And so, like I said, this guide is called Looking Beyond Clinical Care in Hispanic and Latino Communities: How to Incorporate Community Asset Mapping into Community-Initiated Care. So this guide presents community-initiated care as a framework for building supportive systems. Community-initiated care is a fairly new model that's being talked about at the federal level. I know CADCA and SAMHSA were doing kind of like some research on this. They did some qualitative interviews, one of which I participated in, so that they could get a sense of how this framework is realistically happening at the community level, and so that they could kind of create a model for agencies to implement this model in their own communities, because it's going to look different depending on the diversity of the populations that exist, those specific needs that they have, the assets that are already there, and kind of those like gaps that might exist. And so this integrated care model, it doesn't ignore clinical care. It is to supplement clinical care, because we know that we have a shortage of clinical options right now in most communities. And so this guide sets this model as a framework of how we start building these sort of supportive systems, and the role that community asset mapping has as part of that. Because we can't just jump into building out this framework. You've got to know what are the assets that are there, whether they're individuals, skills, organizations, Whether they're cultural assets, what's the role of the faith community and community-based work? A lot of already existing community-initiated care models have been very successful, especially in the South. They're coming out of churches. In some cases, they're coming out of barbershops. The barbershops in some African American communities have really strong ties to these projects. And so this guide kind of gives you an idea of how to get that started. What does this look like? Who should be at the table? There's a case study as part of this guide, as well as some cultural resources for those looking to do this type of work in culturally diverse communities, or even just like a specific culture. And so that really gives you some starting points for what this might look like. And so I am going to leave my contact information here for you, whether you're looking for just more information on the product, or you're looking maybe for some technical assistance or training. You can feel free to reach out to me. Both agencies I am with does offer this type of training, technical assistance, program evaluation type work. And so we would be more than happy to have a conversation and just assess what your needs might be. So thank you for listening, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
Okay. So this Christina's slides and everyone's slides will be available as well to folks. And I will transition back to our slides. And if everyone can see our slides now, maybe a thumbs up from Em or Juliet, because you're the ones I can see. Yeah, great. Then I am going to turn it over to our next fellow, Juliet Ennis.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm here to talk to you about Neighboring Up, a toolkit that I have RAD support as a RAD fellow been able to put together. While you're gonna see the next slide with information about me, I want you to take a moment, hopefully you can all hear me, and think of an asset in your community. And I want you to, don't send it, but I want you to put it into the chat without hitting send. Is everyone clear on that? And I'm going to be watching the main chat, so I'll know if nobody does it. So just please enter into the chat, but don't press send or enter yet. I will tell you when to do that. I want you to just think of an asset that's important to you in your community, and I will shortly tell you to push send or enter, and it will show up. I'm happy to be here with you to talk about the toolkit that I've developed in partnership, as I said, with the New England Prevention Technology Transfer Center, which is again funded by, in part from SAMHSA. So hopefully I've given you some time to think of some things and maybe get a chance to look at some fun facts about myself. I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I have family that grew up and lived in the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont, which is now where I am the executive director of the St. Johnsbury Community Hub, a community impact group that travels throughout the Northeast Kingdom and beyond, doing relationship building and community connection work driven by community members themselves. And I'm going to invite Sarah to go to the next slide, because I want you all now, if you've already typed it in, you can still catch up and type it in now, to hit enter. Okay. And we should start to see a little flow. Great. Thank you. Part of being here that's really important is making time and space to acknowledge not just the community members who inspire the work that we're doing around assets and resources, but the partners, the professional collaborators, the inner onion who have helped me get to this point. They've cried with me, they've laughed with me, they've supported me and coached me. And like those people and the community members every day, who are showing up and are looking for supports and services and utilizing and actually creating some of the assets in our own communities, it's really important to acknowledge that my behavioral health, my mental health assets, and while some of them are professional supports, come in the capacity of human capacity. And that's what asset mapping is all about. It's human capacity to support a thriving community. It takes 1,000 voices to tell a single story. We want the story and the impact of what is happening and available in our communities to be told by those who are interacting and having direct impacts from those assets. And like this quote suggests, it's not just one person. We want to start with what we know, what our community knows, and build on that. And assets, in this case, can be described and developed through this toolkit. It's a package to support you in helping your community invest, explore, and develop something that allows you to put an identity to mattering. Community assets or specific assets, as my colleagues have already talked about, third spaces, interfacing with these spaces, the inclusivity. These pieces need to be learned and explored, and we want that scope to be available to you, to providers, and to partners throughout. So what does that mean? What does that look like? Well, it means neighboring up. What is a neighbor up event? A neighbor up event is an opportunity for community members and partners who can come with their community affiliation or their professional affiliation as an asset and tell us and each other about the impact of what is happening on the ground level. We can explore collectively what kinds of safe, inclusive, or purposeful opportunities exist. And a neighbor up event not only is an organized, structured gathering, it is built to strengthen the well-being and the social cohesion of our community. In the toolkit, you'll have a layout of the framing, these terms and contexts, because community is starting with us, right? We're working together to create it. And it's not just about where we live, right? It's how we're showing up for one another. So community, by definition, for this purpose, is about feeling like you belong as part of a network of care. There's a contribution and a connection. And the asset is anything that's adding value and is sharing to the to add to the quality of our lives collectively. And good neighboring is another frame that you'll kind of hear us talk a little bit about, and you're going to see in the toolkit. It's a core practice that builds a foundation and a framework that allows you to take this and use it and use pieces of it, use the whole thing in a structured way or in a flexible way. And it is built intentionally to be used in multiple spaces with multiple populations, multiple ages, anybody you want. And it is supported by what we call good neighbor agreements, which basically are the expectations and engagement of good neighboring practices. Just a little bit more about that philosophy. A community of good neighboring is based on places and practices where people matter. We're really investing in the concept and the study of mattering. Your toolkit will actually have a section that delves into, as a subject matter, mattering. And you'll see that in your toolkit. Why does Neighbor Up work? Well, if we're really investing in community members and their perspective and their give and get, their offerings, their recipients, if we can say it like that, reception, it's peer-to-peer. It's encouraging community identified solutions. It's supporting alternatives to engagement in community spaces, whether they're third spaces, they're reclaimed public spaces. It's a safe container that's bridging, in some cases, community gaps, but also strengthening the success of resources and assets that already exist. It also puts us in close proximity to each other, where we can talk about stigma, isolation, unmet needs, and challenges with accessing some of these resources. So there is a very specific design and atmosphere that you will see in this curriculum again, or manual or toolkit. It is a 2-hour format. It is broken down into 3 parts: a pre-brief, 1 structured hour, and then a debrief. It's family friendly, it's inclusive, it's local food, local connections, and again, is welcoming of the local resources, whether that is a local food provider, like a restaurant from somewhere, the gas station who has, you know, a sandwich and deli counter. It also invites, again, all ages and can be tailored depending on the population you were looking to invite, right? If you were going to have a family-friendly opportunity, you would, you know, have more coloring pages or more family-related activities. If you had youth, you'd tailor things that way. Again, these are all pieces that are in your toolkit to help you prompt ideas and considerations. The agenda and the content is very specific. It is also extremely flexible. As I said, you've got a pre-brief of 30 minutes. People are showing up wherever it is, whether it's somewhere local that you routinely hold things, or it's in a community space. People are checking in, they're saying hello, they're getting food, they're maybe showing up to talk to a partner or a resource provider who is sharing space with you at this event. The Neighbor Up event itself has 3/4 components. We do a welcome, a new and good, which is an icebreaker, all detailed in your toolkit, table talk, which is, if you're familiar with breakout rooms, small group discussions, a marketplace where we're about sharing resources and matching, meaning you might make an offer, you might want to celebrate something, you may have something that you need. And so there's an environment and a structure that allows you to have that exchange. We clean up, we get rid of all the extra food, we hand out the incentives, and we're on our way. This can actually show up in 3 different ways. We've had different opportunities where those breakout rooms or breakout sessions or small conversations or table talk are very scripted, where, for example, community members wanted to get together following an incident of violence in the community, and we had very structured questions to help to prompt that. We've had community members talk about substance misuse prevention and have things that they identified. They wanted to talk about staying sober. They wanted to talk about engaging youth, and they wanted to talk about the stigma around mental health services. So then there were 3 identified topics that the community uplifted. And then there's a third example where community members were like, we have this list of complaints and we're just really struggling with our apartment complex showing up for us. And instead, we were able to say, hey, who wants to talk about X, Y, and Z? And turned those complaints and those challenges into things that then community members went on to go on and solve issues around. We can measure impact in this kind of environment in a lot of different ways. And that can include asking people straight out, do you feel that this made a difference for you? We can also do things in a more evaluative way where we're saying, on a Likert scale, I feel very valued, I feel undervalued. And we can also, to include M's really beautiful illustrations and to recognize the visualization that comes into this, use a lot of art, story mapping, community asset visualization to create and involve community in creating something that they can do in the moment to acknowledge and to thank those assets that are in their community. You are going to get links, hyperlinks to cue cards, flyer draft, an attendance tracking sheet. We are on to the next slide, Sarah. Contact cards, evaluation template, and direct support and access to me to offer any type of support that you might have. And as we are wrapping up, it's really important for us to realize that we're doing this together. We don't have all the answers. We're starting with care. We are working on being curious. We are doing what we can to uplift the community voice because we know your community voice is what matters. And My colleagues are developing a variety of really wonderful ways to catalog all these various community assets, and we're adding community perspective and context by offering this Neighbor Up event opportunity to make it all that more powerful. And I want to leave you with this quote: to go to the people, live with them, learn from them, love them. Start with what they know, build with what they have, but with the best leaders, when the work is done, the task accomplished, the people will say, we have done it ourselves. Again, thank you so much for being here. Please feel free to reach out, and I would love to travel anywhere you are and pass this on with much energy and excitement to my friend, Michael Awad.
Thank you, Juliet, for your amazing work and just your wonderful spirit. I am Michael Awad. I have the privilege of being the Connecticut Fellow. A little bit about me: I served as the prevention coordinator for the city of New Haven from 2018 to 2023. Um, Also within that period, I served as the chair of the New Haven Prevention Council. You could move to the next slide, Sarah. During that period, I developed a innovative mental health promotion and substance use prevention program that's proudly still being implemented in New Haven public schools. I completed a 2-year policy fellowship at SAMHSA in their Office of Behavioral Health Equity. I completed a 3-year NIDA-funded postdoctoral fellowship in substance abuse prevention at Yale, where I have the honor of now serving as tenure track faculty. Next slide. So you've had the chance to hear about all the outstanding products from our fellows so far, and I would like to think that my product really integrates all the fantastic work presented for New England here today as a whole. Youth mental health is something that is very relevant in the zeitgeist right now. And my product takes this year's theme of community mapping and offers you with tools and resources for how to apply it in planning and implementation of prevention programming that advances youth mental health. So just a snapshot of New England youth. Believe it or not, New England only represents a small sliver of our nation's total population, around 16 million people. About a quarter of them are youth between the ages of 0 to 17, with half of them residing in Massachusetts and Connecticut. Relative to the South and the West, that might seem like a small number, but this provides us with so many opportunities to do enriching prevention work. New England is considered the healthiest region in the country, with some of the best academic research institutes. So capitalizing on our smaller population, our excellent scholarship, and better health outcomes gives us a good starting point to develop good interventions. There are some key mental health challenges facing New England youth that we have to face head on, though. I have just a few listed here that include socioeconomic disparities. We know you can drive up and down New England and see everything from extreme wealth to extreme poverty within just a few miles of each other. Racial and ethnic inequities are better studied and documented, but there's still a lot of work to understand how they impact youth mental health in various domains such as education, technology use, bullying, etc. Community trauma, particularly in states that have been ravaged by the opioid epidemic and communities that are still reeling from natural disasters, is very salient. School disengagement, particularly for school districts that were shut down for the majority of the first year of the COVID pandemic, will have effects for years to come in ways that we still can't imagine. And lastly, limited access to mental health services, especially culturally and linguistically appropriate mental health services, is still a major issue. So in my product, I introduce you to a really terrific tool from an HHS adjacent agency, the CDC. They literally touch on all the vulnerabilities that I just discussed and visually maps them state by state at the county level, even to the neighborhood level, for you to actually see where the data identifies vulnerabilities within communities. This is a screenshot of the dashboard zoomed in on lower New England, and areas that are shaded in yellow indicate lower vulnerability up through blue, which indicates higher vulnerability. So let's say you wanted to develop a prevention program that serves a particular population of interest in a particular area. You can zoom in and out based on how targeted you want your intervention to be. So in this product, community mapping is really the starting point for your intervention planning. But what does this community mapping actually mean? The CDC does a fantastic job indexing these various areas of social vulnerability based on a number of factors that are put into different buckets here, and they're shaded in different colors, as you can see. So let's say you wanted to develop an intervention that caters to people age 17 and younger living in areas below 150% of the poverty line, primarily in neighborhoods with racial and ethnic minority status. You would be able to identify that using the SVI. Or let's say you have an interest in identifying vulnerabilities in a community you're already working with so that you can tweak your interventions. You would be able to identify them using the SVI. When we look at New England as a whole, we see there are high income areas that are generally more resilient and urban and rural regions with limited resources that are more vulnerable. But one disclaimer I have when using this tool is that the data just gives us numbers, which we in turn interpret. So using this information in conjunction with the community members, as my colleagues have really underscored until this point, is super critical. So just because one area on the map is identified as lower vulnerability doesn't mean we should exclude them from intervention planning. There's lots of hidden vulnerability that we only understand in collaboration with the people who live there. This is why my product really drives partnering with community coalitions as a natural step in the process of planning your interventions, because they have a good pulse on what is going on there. And a lot of the work around identifying community assets, as my colleagues have touched on in their products, is already there. So one of my favorite tools in this product is this directory of compendiums that have each state's community coalitions compiled into one place. Lastly, there's a plethora of worksheets and tips that I offer you for how to develop and implement your prevention programs. I use schools as an example because they're the ideal place for youth-based interventions, but the same concepts can be applied to whatever community sector you might want to partner with, such as other youth-serving organizations, faith-based communities, or civic organizations. So I welcome any and all collaboration sincerely. Please reach out. I love hearing what you're doing in your communities and how I can be helpful to you. I'm always available for consultation, for research collaborations and community partnerships. Email is probably the best way to contact me, so feel free to screenshot this. And I want to now turn it over to our terrific leader, Sarah Harlow, who is the brilliant mind behind this amazing fellowship to help close us out.
Thank you, Michael. Brilliant mind. I'm going to be writing that all day long. I want to now give the link to the resources to folks. And I saw we had someone in the chat who put it earlier, and I deleted it so no one would run away and look at the products early. But now you can go and look at them now that you've heard all about them. And we're going to put the link to this in the chat as well so you can easily access. In the last few minutes, we've seen that there's one resource that just has a link that goes to the wrong direction. So Dan is going to put the correct resource in the chat, and just know that that will be edited in the next few minutes or so. We're working behind the scenes on that. Thank you, Dan. That's Juliet's project is linking to the wrong source. So Dan just put that in the chat, and I will grab this link and put it in the chat as well in just a moment, unless one of my fellows or Dan or Erin or Susan or someone else wants to grab the link and put it in the chat for me. Thank you, Dan. And with that, I am going to open us up for questions. I do want to say, and I think everybody said this themselves, but I will just add that all of our fellows are happy to continue working with people, doing technical assistance. If you saw something today that you really loved and you want more details, more information, you can reach out to us to connect you to the fellow. You can reach out directly to the fellows. You see their email addresses here. We always are looking to support and do technical assistance and help you do your work better. So let us know what you need and how we can support. I do want to also put a note that we do plan to have a 2026 fellowship. So if you saw how this worked this time around and you loved it and you're interested to learn more, we usually put out information about our fellowships at the end of the year to early January. We are thinking about doing some structural changes to what the program looks like next year. So we're not totally landed on what those changes look like yet, but stay tuned if you're interested to learn more. But with that, I will stop our recording and we will have our conversation. I did make a couple notes on questions that we can return to, and then I'll open the mic for others. So let me stop recording.